In 2025, millions of Facebook users across the United States began receiving unexpected payments. Some arrived as checks in the mail, others through PayPal, Venmo, or direct deposit. The amounts were modest, $30 here, $50 there. But together, they represented one of the largest privacy settlements in American history, $725 million. This was the final chapter in a saga that began years earlier, when Facebook's hunger for growth collided with its responsibility to protect user data. What followed was a scandal, a lawsuit, and a payout that exposed the true cost of broken trust. To understand the settlement, we need to go back to 2018. That year, the world learned about Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting firm that harvested data from tens of millions of Facebook profiles without consent. The revelation was explosive. It showed that Facebook had allowed third-party apps to collect personal information, not just from users, but from their friends as well. The scandal wasn't just about data, it was about power. Cambridge Analytica claimed it could use psychological profiling to influence elections. Whether those claims were exaggerated or not, the damage was done. Facebook had failed to safeguard its users, and the public realized that their private lives had been turned into commodities. The fallout was immediate. Governments launched investigations. Mark Zuckerberg was called before Congress, forced to explain how a platform built on connection had become a tool for manipulation. The image of Zuckerberg testifying, flanked by lawyers and cameras, became symbolic of Silicon Valley's reckoning. Before we go deeper, a quick reminder: if you're fascinated by stories of corporate collapse, reckless ambition, and the lessons hidden inside billion-dollar mistakes, subscribe to Business Failures. Each week, we uncover the rise and fall of companies that thought they were untouchable until reality caught up. Now let's return to Facebook's reckoning. Outrage turned into litigation. Thousands of lawsuits were filed across the country, eventually consolidated into a multi-district litigation, an MDL, known as the Facebook User Profile Privacy Litigation. The accusations were clear. Facebook had violated privacy rights, misled users, and failed to protect sensitive data. For years, the case wound its way through the courts. Facebook denied wrongdoing, but faced mounting pressure. Regulators in the US and abroad launched investigations. Politicians demanded accountability, and users, ordinary people who had trusted the platform, waited to see if justice would ever arrive. The MDL became a test case for the digital age. Could a company built on monetizing personal information be held accountable when that information was misused? In 2023, Facebook's parent company, Meta, agreed to settle. The price? $725 million. It was one of the largest data privacy settlements in history. Eligibility was broad. Anyone who had a Facebook account between May 2007 and December 2022 could file a claim. That meant nearly every American adult who had ever used the platform. By the deadline in August 2023, millions had submitted claims. The payout process took time. Legal approvals, administrative logistics, and verification dragged on for 2 years. But in September 2025, the money began to flow. For most, the amounts were small, $30 to $50. But the symbolism was enormous. It was a tangible acknowledgement that Facebook had failed its users. The settlement administrator distributed funds through multiple channels: checks, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, direct deposit, and prepaid cards. The diversity of payment methods reflected the scale of the operation. millions of transactions, each representing a fragment of accountability. And yet, the settlement raised a haunting question. Was this true justice, or simply a financial footnote for a company that still dominates global communication? On paper, $725 million sounds staggering. But for Meta, a company worth hundreds of billions, it was little more than a financial inconvenience. The settlement didn't bankrupt Facebook. It didn't cripple its operations, but it did tarnish its reputation. The scandal forced Facebook to confront uncomfortable truths. Its business model was built on collecting and monetizing user data. That data fueled advertising revenue, which in turn drove profits. But when the public realized how little control they had over their own information, trust evaporated. The settlement was not just about money, it was about accountability. It was a reminder that even the most powerful tech companies are not above the law. And it was a warning to other platforms. Exploit user trust, and you may face consequences. For users, the settlement was bittersweet. The checks were small, symbolic, rather than transformative. $30 could buy a dinner, not restore years of lost privacy. But for many, the payment was a validation. It proved that their outrage had mattered, that the courts had listened, and that Facebook had been forced to pay a price. The irony was hard to ignore. Facebook had profited enormously from user data. Advertisers paid billions to target individuals with precision. Yet when it came time to compensate those same individuals, the payouts were pocket change. The imbalance highlighted the vast gulf between corporate profits and consumer rights. Some users joked about the settlement online, posting photos of their checks with captions like, "Thanks for selling my data, Facebook." Others expressed frustration, arguing that the payout was too small to matter. But collectively, the payments carried weight. They were a reminder that users are not powerless. The Facebook settlement offers three critical lessons for business. First, trust is fragile. Once broken, it cannot be repaired with money alone. Facebook's brand will forever carry the scars of Cambridge Analytica. Second, data is power. Companies that collect personal information must treat it with care. Mishandling data is not just a technical failure, it is a moral one. Third, accountability matters. Regulators, courts, and consumers are watching. In the digital age, transparency is not optional. It is the foundation of sustainable business. For entrepreneurs and executives, the lesson is clear. Growth at all costs is a dangerous strategy. Short-term profits cannot justify long-term damage to reputation. In the end, the cost of broken trust is always higher than the cost of caution. The settlement also raises broader questions. Are small payouts enough to deter corporate misconduct? Should penalties scale with profits, ensuring that billion-dollar companies feel the sting of accountability? And what does this mean for the future of privacy in a world where data is the most valuable commodity? For Facebook, the $725 million settlement was a warning shot. For other tech giants, Google, Amazon, TikTok, it was a reminder that their practices could one day face similar scrutiny. The age of unchecked data exploitation is ending. The age of accountability is beginning. The case also highlights the role of users. Millions filed claims demanding compensation. Their participation transformed outrage into tangible action. It showed that collective pressure can force even the largest corporations to pay attention. The Facebook settlement was not the end of the story. It was a chapter in a larger narrative about technology, power, and trust. For users, the checks were small. For Facebook, the payout was manageable. But for the business world, the lesson was profound. No company, no matter how powerful, can survive if it betrays the trust of its customers. This is Business Failures. Subscribe for more stories of companies that rose with promise, fell with hubris, and left behind lessons we cannot afford to ignore.